the stand. Now he runs. He produces a magic print. He pulls out another one. This is incredible. This is ridiculous. This is 15 out of 10 on the incredible meter. What a player. What an entertainer. Give him the medal. Give him the Dally-M medal.
Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast. We're here, we're ready, we're back, ready to rip and tear into our Super Saturday preview for round 5 of the NRL Telstra Premiership season. I will admit this one is being recorded at 1:34 currently Friday, so if any news drops between now and obviously when this is uploaded, they sort of won't be available on this podcast. So let's hope there are no late news, no late outs in this one, because then, you know, there'll be a few changes in how I see things. But right now, we're riding the high of Thursday night. If any of you follow the Instagram, you would have seen why we're riding that high. Young Jesse Arthurs, he went from being sold in my Supercoach team to being brought in and played as a reserve, and he scored 84 points. So, you know, Jesse Arthurs is my new king. So we're riding that high right now. But I thought we'd get in here, get this one recorded, get it ready to post, hopefully early in the morning for anybody who is, you know, out there driving or doing it tough and they want something to just listen to early in the morning for whatever job that you're up to or whatever you're doing in life. So I want to get this one ready. As I said, that means if there are any late outs, any late news, it might be a little bit outdated and things might change, but I'm sure you guys can make your own decisions based on that. We're just going to go through it and give our tips and give our previews for this one. So we'll start straight away with, of course, the first game on Super Saturday. That, of course, being the South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the New Zealand Warriors at 3 p.m. at a core stadium in Sydney. Rabbitohs currently sitting 16th out of 17 teams. They got their first win of the season last week against the Bulldogs. Only team below them should be the Titans, I believe. While the Warriors, they're sitting in 10th. They're sitting 2 wins, 2 losses so far this season. So definitely some improvement to go there, but we know how they've looked. Everybody can see how they've looked. We talk about them each and every week. They're looking the goods. But this one, Rabbitohs home game. Let's sort of see how it all plays out in this one. Are the Rabbitohs going to get any sort of momentum on the back of their first victory? We'll just have to wait and see. When it comes to the tipping, of course, that means I am taking the Warriors. I just think, you know, we can always say, obviously they are my team, and you can always put a little bit of bias in there. But I think what we've seen from them so far this season, I'm really, really excited. And even beyond that, you know how much I criticise the Rabbitohs and how worried I am about that football team. So it's a pretty easy decision to make. I think Warriors win. I genuinely think they could win big. But before we sort of get into why I think that is, let's just go through and do the ins and outs for these teams. So for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, first out, we have Alex Johnston. He's missing now with a hamstring injury, probably going to miss a fair few weeks, up to about 6, I'm hearing at the moment. So he's replaced on the wing by Isaac. It used to be Isaac Thompson, but once again, he's got a name change. I'm going to do my best to pronounce it. So I believe it is Isaac Tuatupo Thompson. Apologies if I've butchered that, but I'm doing my best to pronounce these names as they are meant to, and I want to give my best respects to that. But he has come in on the wing for Alex Johnston. He's in that number 2 jersey. The only other change is that Shaq Mitchell is out of this one, so Sean Kepi also comes onto the bench for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. If we move into the Warriors, we have some big ins and outs. The biggest of which being Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad. He is named at fullback to make his return from injury and his first game of the season for the Warriors. So Charnze back at fullback means Roger is back to the centres, and who played in the centres before that? Why am I having a mind blank? Adam Pompey. Adam Pompey drops out into the reserves. Apologies, it took me a long time to think of that for some reason. Beyond that, though, Luke Metcalf, he is out, expected back late season. He has got a cracked fibula, it might have been. Either way, he's got a broken leg. He's out long term. So Tamaro Martin replaces him. We talked a bit about how we expected Chanel Harris-Tavita to get that role. They haven't gone with that way, which, you know, I've got complete respect for. All 3 players, whether it's Metcalf, Tamaro Martin, or Chanel Harris-Tavita, are fantastic options. And as a Warriors fan, no matter who they chose originally, I'm happy to have them in the side. So to see Tamaro back in there is good. I'm pretty sure he has never once lost a game while playing for the Warriors. So let's keep that trend going, shall we? Beyond that, the other out is Luke Metcalf. No, we've said that. Kurt Capewell, sorry. Kurt Capewell is out of this one. So he's replaced at second row by Marata Niokore. Their bench is now Lussick, Ale, Afoa, and Tavanga. So Chanel Harris-Tavita has not made the reserves, but he's been a sort of late in for those reserves. I assume he might come in for Lussick once again in this one, but we'll have to wait and see. But those are the changes for these two teams. So we've obviously talked about the tips. I'm tipping the Warriors. Well, I already have tipped the Warriors for the round. I just think in terms of how this one plays out, look, I talk about it extensively. This Rabbitohs forward pack hasn't stood up. They're up there with the Knights. They're probably, and the Titans, I suppose. I'm more disappointed in their forward packs than I am in any other team. And it's frustrating as a Rabbitohs supporter. Well, I can imagine it would be. I'm not a Rabbitohs supporter myself. But you've got this explosive backline. You've got threat all across the backline and all across the park. And you can make stuff happen. You've got one of the best attacking teams with Latrell, Jack White and Cody Walker. But your forward pack, if they don't lay a platform, you can't do anything with that. And a lot of people are sitting here quick to call out Latrell or quick to call out Cody Walker or Lachlan Ilias, who obviously is missing once again with Dean Hawkins at halfback. I think none of that matters if your forward pack doesn't stand up. So because of that, they might stand up in this one. Who knows? We'll have to see. But from what I've seen so far, I think they get monstered by this Warriors forward pack, which we know is up there with the best in the competition. And off the back of that, we know how gritty this Warriors team is in defence. They're conceding not many points at all unless your name is the Melbourne Storm. And they can throw some attack at you. I think the inclusion of Charles Nickel-Klugstad is going to be massive for their attacking structures. Expect their right-hand side to just be looking so silky. I think they're going to attack that a lot. We'll get into the bets, but Dallin Watene-Zelezniak for a try scorer, load up on it. But yeah, I don't see a world where the Warriors lose this one. Potentially, it's in Sydney, but I don't think it necessarily matters. It's not like the Rabbitohs, their home crowd is necessarily like a fortress of Newcastle's home crowd or New Zealand's home crowd. It's just a sort of neutral fan base, and we know that the Warriors have a lot of supporters in Australia nowadays as well, so it could be quite a neutral crowd going in there. I don't think the home crowd advantage is going to do enough for the Rabbitohs to get the win here. If they want to get this win, their forward pack has to stand up. And unfortunately, I just don't see that happening. So, yeah, definitely have the Warriors winning this one. So we'll move into our bets for this game. The first of which, of course, being the New Zealand Warriors head-to-head as the first leg of the multi. We mentioned it before, but I just talked about Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I've got him in this multi, to score 2 or more tries. Not just an anytime try scorer, but Dallin Watene-Zelezniak to score 2 or more tries is the second leg of this multi. And the final leg is the match going over 39.5 total match points. That one could be risky. Warriors, very much, they're not putting too many points on the board at the moment, and they're also not conceding many. But I still back that this Rabbitohs team can score points from anywhere. And I honestly think that, as I said, with Charns back for this Warriors team, they can score a lot more points than what they're currently averaging so far this season. So we'll go through those legs again. As New Zealand Warriors head-to-head, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak for 2 or more tries and over 39.5 total match points. That one comes to a multi of $8.25. So if you're putting $1 on that and you win, you get $8.25 back to the dollar. Once again, we'll say it every week. This bet, all my bets are done through Sportsbet. I'm not affiliated with Sportsbet in any way. They're just the agency that I choose to bet with. If you're looking to follow along with any of my bets, please do it through the Sportsbet app, because other agencies may not have these markets available, and even if they do, the odds may be completely different. So if you're wanting to just come along for this ride with me and we can chat about this, jump on Sportsbet, do it through Sportsbet. But once again, whenever we're gambling, please make sure that we're gambling responsibly. Do not bet what you can't afford. You always lose more than you win. So with that out of the way, we'll move into the second game of our Super Saturday. That game, of course, being the Manly Seagulls taking on the Penrith Panthers, 5:30 p.m, 6th of April at 4 Pines Park, the old Brookvale Oval. So this is a Manly home game. Manly currently sitting in 11th on the back of last week's loss. Panthers, they're up in 3rd place. They're starting this season really strong. Last year I thought they were a bit slow to start. This year they're starting out infinitely better, in my opinion. So A very hard game to pick. Obviously, Manly, if they got a dominant win last week, you might be thinking, oh, this is could be the game that they stamp their authority on this competition. You know, they've already beaten the Roosters, who are a powerhouse. If they can dominate the Dragons last week and they come into this game full of confidence against the Panthers side without Nathan Cleary, could that be the one? Well, that's not the way it's played out, unfortunately. We know Manly, pretty disappointing, very, very disappointing loss to the Dragons last week. Tom Trbojevic with his worst game I've ever seen. So they come into this game looking for a bounce back, sure, and it is at home, so they can definitely get the win. But it is against the Penrith Panthers, so we'll get into that. In terms of ins and outs, we've actually got nothing here, to my knowledge, for the Manly Seagulls. They've stuck very strong with their original team. For the Penrith Panthers, we only have the one change. James Fisher-Harris, he makes his way back into this side, which means Lindsay Smith drops to the bench. And who drops out? Maverick Geyer. Last week's debutant, he is now out of the side. He looked good, Maverick Geyer, but of course, as soon as James was back, he was going to drop out. So Penrith, they've been dominant. They looked fantastic again last week, and now they welcome back the Golden Boot winner of 2023. So, you know, not a bad addition to have back into their side. In terms of tips, of course, that means I have gone with the Penrith Panthers. I just think, as I said, they look too good. They always look too good. I think Manly, if they had a dominating, commanding performance against the Dragons last week, they could get a lot of people's tips, and they might still get a few tips here and there, but most people, I think, will be with me in going for the Penrith Panthers. I think it's hard to bet against them at the best of times, but with Manly's performance last week, it's even tougher to bet against them. In saying that, there is definitely a world where Manly do get away with a win. They can perform from anywhere. You know, we expected them last week to put on that performance. What does 1 week change? Maybe it's just forget last week. Let's focus on what we do best and ignore that. Wipe it from the memory, wipe it from the system, and let's go again. So Manly can get the win, but I think I'm safe in tipping the Penrith Panthers, and I think most people would be safe in thinking the exact same thing. In terms of how I see it playing out, well, it's a very interesting one, this one. The Panthers are a bit different. We don't know exactly what we're going to get out of them without Nathan Cleary. Brad Schneider, he played a very, very good game last week, very controlled, very executed. He executed everything to perfection. His role in their attacking structures was really, really good. The way he kicked the ball was fantastic. He was just a really controlling, dominating performance from a halfback. But is that going to be the norm? He's still quite early on into his NRL career. Can he back that up again? Can he do that again? Are they going to do that again? Are they going to lean more heavily into Jerome Luai? There's just a lot of factors that we don't really know in a side without Nathan Cleary. In saying that, what we do know is they're going to be tough through the middle. They're going to bash and barge you. They're going to beat you up, and then they'll come through on the other side. So, yeah, very interesting on how it's going to play. Of course, we talk about Manly's forward pack in the sense that it's pretty light on paper. They've been pretty good over this season in general. But what Panthers do differently to most is they do have the two best yardage men in the NRL, in Dylan Edwards and Brian To'o, and then you've got players like Taruva, Tungo, and May who just back that up, and they get through a lot of work as well. So while their forward pack might not be putting up the best numbers in attack, what they're doing in defense is they're rested for attack because their back line is doing all that work. And when it comes to defense, Leota and Fisher-Harris, they are going to hammer you, and they're going to beat you, and they're going to batter you, they're going to bruise you, to the point where your forward pack's going to be too sore or be too afraid to run the ball. So it's a success that it's a factor that only a few clubs have. You could argue even only the Penrith Panthers do. There's not many other clubs in the NRL that have the work rate that this back five of the Panthers do, especially with Brian To'o and Dylan Edwards, who average 250 metres a game. So I think it's just going to be a similar situation for the Panthers and for the Seagulls in that sense. They're going to beat them up through the middle with their forward pack, but particularly they're going to beat them up in defence, and just the work that their explosive outside backs will get through is just going to be too much. Of course, we talk about the Seagulls. We know they can attack from anywhere. I expect them to spread wide again. They're going to use Cooler and use his pace a lot. Taylor May has been caught out a few times defensively this season, and he's marking up on the left, so he'll be up against Ruben Garrick. Which, once again, you're not losing too much pace in terms of Ruben Garrick to Tolutau Kula. Garrick very, very fast himself. He's stood a lot of players up this year, and the Seagulls have arguably looked better when they go to their right-hand side than when they do go to their left. So there's definitely points in their back line. I think if they can continue to skin Taylor May, they definitely would have studied the tapes and see how Taylor's been exposed a few times in defense. Then you can work around that and you can score some points. I expect a massive game from Tom Trbojevic. He had his worst game I've ever seen last week. He's going to want to bounce back, and he's also going to want to do it against the best team in the NRL. So there's definitely many worlds where Manly win. I'm just going to back in the Penrith Panthers, back in what we know. So in terms of my bets for this game, that means I have the Penrith Panthers head-to-head as my first leg of my multi. I do have Tom Trbojevic as an anytime try scorer, as I said, looking to back up his poor performance last week with a good one here. And I've got the match going over 39.5 total match points. Once again, the Penrith Panthers, they are a very defensive side and they don't leak too many points, but a rejuvenated Manly side have to prove themselves after last week's capitulation. They will score points. It doesn't matter who you're up against. They score points from anywhere. In saying that, we also know that the Penrith Panthers, they can score a few themselves. They're the best team in the NRL. So I'm really confident with the over 39.5 total match points bet. So once again, I'll read through them. That is Penrith Panthers head-to-head, Tom Trbojevic, anytime try scorer, and over 39.5 total match points. That multi comes to $7.25, which I've actually boosted to $8, but $7.25 for that at the time of betting it. So if you're putting $1 on that and you win, you get $7.25 back for the bet. I've once again forgotten to do my matchups for this one. So let's just start with this one. Unfortunately, you're not getting a matchup for the Warriors Rabbitohs game. So we'll go straight to this one. The matchup I am most looking forward to see, it could be Tolutau Kula up against Isaac Tungo. They've been in really good form so far this season. I also really like the idea of Luke Brooks up against Jerome Luai. You know, Jerome without his halves partner in Cleary, he looked really good last week. Didn't have the stamp of the authority on the side or on too many of their attacking structures, but he was really good, bouncing around like a jackrabbit. Looked really dangerous. Luke Brooks, disappointing last week. I do think he had one of his... Well, it was one of the better performances for the Seagulls. He really was trying to conjure something from nothing, but nothing was going right for the Seagulls, to be honest. But I do think Luke Brooks, he's had a fantastic season so far. I do like that matchup, the 5/8 in this one. And I do like the centre matchup of Kula and Tungo. If we go into the forward pack, though, it's actually not a bad front rower duel. Paseka and Alloye really stood up for the Seagulls last week. And, you know, they're up against arguably the best front row pairing in the NRL, or even of all time. It's been talked about in Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris. So that's a really good duel. You can even look at the lock forwards in Jake Trbojevic and Isaiah Yeo too. So there's a lot of matchups across the park in this one that are really exciting. But I think my favourite of which is going to be Tolutau Kula and Isaac Tungo, followed closely by Luke Brooks and Jerome Luai. Also, we'll quickly give a special mention. This is Jaylee Cherry Evans's 310th NRL appearance, which will make him the most capped Seagull of all time, overtaking Cliffy Lyons. So massive shout out to Daly Cherry Evans for that one. That is a fantastic achievement. He will go down as one of the greats for the Manly Seagulls. So awesome to see that. Alas, we will move into the final of our Super Saturday games. This one being the Dolphins taking on the Wests Tigers, 7:35 p.m. at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. Dolphins currently sitting in second on the ladder. They're having a great season. Of course, they had the bye as well, so that one helps them. But they're up against the West Tigers, who are currently sitting in sixth. We think that the Tigers have come out with a bye, a loss, and then 2 wins. So they've got a possible... What's that? 6 points out of 8. So they're playing a fantastic season themselves, the Tigers. So really excited for this game as well. In terms of the tips, well, you know, let's just start with the ins and outs for each team. Now, there's only really the one in and out for both these sides, and both have come in very similar ways. So for the Dolphins, Maxi Plath, he is suspended for 2 weeks with a hip drop tackle, which we talked about in the review podcast. It is one of the worst hip drop tackles I've ever seen, and a 2-week suspension is more than fair. It could be unders. Again, nothing against Max Plath. I think he's a great player, and I think he's a good bloke. But yeah, it was very ugly tackle, so 2 weeks for that is fine. Which means Ray Stone, he starts at lock in this one, and Kenny Bromwich joins the bench for the Dolphins. Meanwhile, for the Tigers, we have another player out with a hip drop, and that, of course, is their young superstar, Lachlan Galvin. He's out for another 2 weeks with a suspension, which means Jaden Sullivan, he comes in at 5'8". He was, of course, playing 14 for the last couple of weeks. And Latu Fainu, the young superstar, comes in to make his debut in the NRL off the bench in jersey 14. So really cool stuff to see that for Latu Fainu. In terms of the tips, I have indeed tipped the Dolphins. I do think they can get away with it. I think they're playing some really, really good football. I've been really impressed with the Tigers, since after their first game where I thought they were atrocious. They've put together some really gritty and really controlled, and just across the park, they've been really, really good in their last couple of performances, the Tigers. Unfortunately, I do just think that the class of this Dolphins side can get them across the line, but I'm not, in any way really confident in that. Definitely could go either way, and I'm just excited for this clash. Excited for two teams who are expected to be sort of down the bottom of the ladder, and here they are sitting pretty in the top 8 at the moment, and they're playing some really good footy, so that's awesome to see. In terms of how I see it playing out, it's going to be an interesting one. Look, both of these sides have been really controlled in the way that they're playing their structures. I highlighted the Dolphins especially last week. Their attacking structures were really, really classy, really incredible, to be honest. There was, one move in particular I talked about from Isaiah Katoa, how he hit out the back, dodging his pass, essentially just going behind Ewan Aitken and playing out the back. It was just, fantastic. They're playing some really good attacking structures, and I also think the Tigers, they're settling in well to that stuff now. We've talked about Aiden Caesar, who obviously made my team of the week last week. But the role he's been playing for this Tigers team, just like simplifying their game, really. He does his role as a halfback. He kicks to corners, he kicks the bombs, and he just controls them in attack. He's not doing anything flashy, just straightening into line and doing what you want from a halfback. So I think both these teams are getting wins just based on their attacking structures and based on the way they play. It's not necessarily from standout performances of individuals or your forward pack completely dominating another. It's just, you can match another team, and then you're going to back your boys and your attacking structures and the game plan that you've built. You're going to back that in to get you results, and I really like that. It's something that we don't see a lot of in the NRL, especially in the early rounds. I think early rounds are typical for being really defensive, gritty efforts, and then just superstars that sort of break that apart. Well, right now it's just seeing a few teams just win on the back of their game plans. I love that to see. I think these two are right at the top of that. You can see the Warriors, they're winning games and they're playing games based on game plans rather than individual performances, while teams like even the Panthers last week, they played fantastic, and you can see in their attacking structures and the way that they play. But as I said, they've got a different sort of game plan to most in the way that they use their forwards, in the way that they use their backs. And even they just got a few tries of individual efforts, not necessarily from like game plans or structures last week. So like seeing these teams do it, I think is awesome to see. But I do think that the Dolphins can just get behind it. In terms of the forward pack duel, I think it could be quite even across the park. As I said, that's why I just back in the Dolphins team to get it done. And if this is a really hotly contested contest and it's neck and neck and you need a player to split them, I'm going to back a player like Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow to be the difference maker over anyone in that Tigers team. So where I do see this being a really close contested contest, I think, the structures of the Dolphins can do it. And even if they can't, I think a superstar like Hammer can just be the one to break it open and get them to the win. Again, not my most confident tip. I do think the Tigers can definitely pull away a win here. But I've got the Dolphins in my head-to-head, which, of course, is the first leg of my multi as well. The second, I've got Ewan Aitken as an anytime try scorer. We talked about his role in their attacking structures earlier. I think if they hit him on a few lead occasions, teams are going to study how they moved the ball around last week And if that's the case and they're expecting these plays, you can hit Ewan Aitken, you can put him over normally a decoy runner, but if you hit him on a short ball, I think he can cross on this one. So there's a bit of value in Ewan Aitken. I like that as a leg. And I've got the match going over 41.5 total match points. These teams haven't been too afraid to score points, particularly the Dolphins, who have put on a few scores. So, yeah, really confident with the 41.5 total match points going overs. I'll read those back again. That is Dolphins head-to-head, Ewan Aitken anytime try scorer, and over 41.5 total match points for a multi of $8.75 in value. So if you're putting $1 on that, you can win $8.75 back to the dollar if all of the legs get up. In terms of my matchup for this one, well, the fullbacks has got to be the most exciting one here. Jahream Buller and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, both players having some really, really good seasons. Settling, you can essentially say they're both still rookies. You know, Hammer, only his first real full season of fullback last year, and even then he was playing in the centres at some stages. But fantastic season for him. And Jahream Buller, he was a rookie last year, and he's settling in well now. It's essentially their sophomore seasons for these two players, and I'm really excited to see how they match up against each other in this game. I also like the duel in the halves, not necessarily because they're alike, but because of how different they are. Cody Nikorima, I've been quite disappointed in this year, but I've also been really disappointed in Jaden Sullivan. So let's see how they respond to that. Isaiah Katoa and Aiden Caesar I've been really impressed with. So let's just see how those halves lead their sides around the park and how they can get this one done. I also like the matchup of Jeremy Marshall-King and Apasai Coruscant. We know how fantastic Coruscant's been this year. I'm excited to see how he matches up with JMK. I think that's a really good one there. But yeah, my absolute favourite is, of course, you can't go past the superstar fullbacks, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow and Jahream Buller. That is my matchup to watch in this one. But that one will indeed wrap us up for our Saturday previews. Once again, if you've gotten this far, if anything has changed, unlucky. As I said, recording this one 2 o'clock on the Friday. It is currently right now. So if any changes happen between now and when this one's done, you know, things might change. If there's a massive out, it could have changed my tips, but also I do my tips before the round even starts. You go through and do them all, so can't win them all. But let's ride this. I'm excited for these Super Saturday games. So I will thank you guys for tuning into this one. Once again, if you're not following me on Instagram, please go give that a follow. Getting some more content up there. And if you're getting on any of these bets, you can swing me a message and we can chat about these and just ride them together and have a bit of fun. But thank you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll see you guys next time.